Pastor Goodwin in Africa. Lord, I pray that our hearts would become hearts full of Jesus, and that we would each one be moved and motivated to love and to serve Jesus everywhere in every way for the cause of the kingdom. In Jesus' name we pray. Bless our evening. Amen.
Wow, so nice to see you here tonight. We'll try to go quickly through and see if we can't finish it today. I'm going to begin at the beginning, actually, because we want to be able to put it on YouTube, the whole thing. So we're going to go quickly through the beginning, and then we'll get a little more detail on the other things. So this was a recent trip from December 5 of 2018 to November 1 of 2019. Almost a year, almost 11 months, short by 4 days of 11 months. I actually intended to come back. I had my ticket to come back on February 4. But I renewed my ticket 5 times until I finally came back on November 1. So, you know, the harvest is plenteous. I'm telling you, everywhere in Africa, the harvest is plenteous. And I believe everywhere in the world that I go is the same, actually. But it seems like, for some reason, Africa is especially responsive and receptive. The people there, you know, they don't have so much as we have here. And so, you know, if you try to live on $1 a day, can you imagine that would be a little tough, you know, anywhere in the world. But these people, even though they have little, they're wonderful people. And they're generous. If I go to visit them sometimes, you know, they'll go out and sacrifice to buy a Fanta or something for me when I know they can't really afford that. But that's the way they are. Africa is filled with wonderful people. Now, you know, you have your rascals there just like we do here. But most of the people are just genuine, wonderful, down-to-earth people that you'll come to love and appreciate as you get to know them. So this was the trip that we took together. I went with a small team of us to go help with evangelistic meetings in the country of Kenya. Total member involvement. They were in many locations in an area where I had done some previous activity. In fact, back in 2007, I had been invited by Pastor Ruguri, after I had met him here at the General Conference, to come over and help do a training of youth. So a team of 7 of us went over, 3 adults and 4 young people, college-age young people. We went over to train 300 young people in Mankau, Manimanti area. Mankau is where Pastor Ruguri and his wife are from. And so they were anxious to do something in that area. And so at that time, he was division secretary, but he then became, at the General Conference, he became General Conference President in 2010. And this is his end of his 2nd term now. So I went with that small team. 3 were from Heartland, and then a mother and her niece was also with us. This is a wonderful bicycle ministry. I wish I could tell you a whole story about this. It's amazing how this whole thing began, but we'll have to do that another time. But now there's many of these people completely giving voluntary work. They get paid nothing except the joy of sharing salvation with others. And they're passionate, men and women, passionate on serving. And they are actually one of the main reasons why these evangelistic meetings happen, because they've been doing work and they will prepare and follow up for the evangelistic meetings. So here you see many bicycles, many of them new, that would be provided for these people. Even women are involved, although I think we need to get women's bicycles for the women in the future. And this was in the church there. During the week, they were doing different activities and doing evangelism in the marketplace not nearby. You know, they tend to like to go to marketplaces where people feel comfortable. And they do it a little different from here. I think we would get run out of town if we did it here like they do it there. They'll set up their speakers and they'll blast away. Whether you're there or not, you're going to hear the message. You might be way over there, but you're going to hear it. You can't escape it because they make so much noise. Here the police would come and say, hey, you can't do this. You need to quiet down, you know. But there they do it consistently that way. They love to go to these places. So they were having some activities there in the church, but at the beginning of this program, they had a big fanfare of having people go out along the road there, different women's ministry dressed up in their costumes, women's ministry, community services, pathfinders, and then the people on bicycles, motorcycles, whatever they could do to make noise and get attention. You can see they're going a little parade-like. I had a chance to visit this Catholic school, a Catholic church that was doing some training of youth, and so I went over, got acquainted with them, and they let me come and do some training too. I was teaching them some things that would be helpful in being good Christian young people. So then I also had a chance to take some supplies from a Methodist church over in Churchville. I stopped by one evening soon before I was going over there, told them about this facility over in Marimonte area where the meetings were going to be held that I was be involved with. And so they put together these supplies, and I took a suitcase of supplies over for them to the deaf school that is being there in Marimonte. There's actually several Seventh-day Adventists that work at this deaf school. The last time, two times ago when I was there, they were singing some of the Sabbath school songs that they were teaching the deaf children there in the school. So it was very exciting. This is a resource center that was built with funds from a lady from Florida. She helped to develop this. It has a library in it, a place for library, a place for computers, a place for HIV testing, supplies, and different things. It's a nice facility made from stone, so it's very substantial there in Marimonte. And I understand from just recently when I talked to the pastor before I left Kenya that it's now operating. It's been a long time kind of getting operating. Now, at the end of the week, end of the 2 weeks of evangelistic meetings, then they had like a big celebration where people came together from different sites for a mass baptism. And here we are in the church there at Marimonte. One of the young people, the parking lot outside, you can see, has motorcycles and mostly bicycles and motorcycles, not many cars. But at the baptism site, you'll notice that most of the young people, most of the people that are being baptized are youth, young people. And that's very encouraging because in Africa, it's largely a young church. 60 to 70% of our membership is 35 and under. So it's a young church, very different from this country. But on this side, you look at the young men lined up there. Most of them are young people being baptized in the muddy water there. And then on the other line, you see the young ladies. Most of those are young ladies there in that line. This is now a place where we're going to be building a secondary school. The conference had 60 acres there, and we were able to purchase 20 more acres. So now we have 80 acres that can be developed into a secondary school, and this is in an area where the Muslims have been pleading for a secondary school. Not too far away from there in Tonga, there is a primary school, also a nursery primary school, that has been very successful in recent years in reaching out to the Muslim population, which is 95% Muslim in that area. And so what that elementary school has grown in the past number of years from about 73, 74 students to now over 700. And majority of those are coming from Muslim homes. And that's interesting because there are many Muslim schools in the community, but they're choosing the Adventist schools that like the way Adventists take care of their kids. Isn't that good testimony? And you know, what's incredible too, out of all the all the primary schools in the region, which are over, I think, 280 schools, it's now number 4 in ranking. In quality. And so it's not only a safe place for the children, but it's one of the best schools, and they're going for number 1. With God's blessing, they want to become number 1. So we want to begin as soon as possible. I'm suggesting that we begin by building two of these shelters into dormitories so that they can be used then to house volunteers that will come in to help in building the rest of the facility and developing it for the future school. Hopefully, I would like to see by the beginning of 2021, maybe it could be operating. And what I would suggest is that they start with one level at a time. Each year, add another level. So say 9th grade, and then you had 9th and 10th, then 9th, 10th, 11th. Don't try to do everything at once because it's a big responsibility. So pray for this. It's a great opportunity to reach Muslim brothers and sisters. And it has a good water supply. There's a valley area there on the property where you don't even have to go down more than about 6 feet and you hit water. And there's plenty of water. So it's going to be a good place for being able to not only have water for bathing and so on, because you need to boil that water because it's so close to the surface, but you can also use it for irrigating or watering the crops. So that's enough property there where we can be able to have that. That's Pastor Mdingi, by the way. He's the very, very interesting pastor there, works so well with the Muslim people. Now here you find one of those tall coconut trees. Can you imagine? Here's this little guy down there. That's a man, and he climbs up there to get the coconuts. So you must, when you go buy coconuts, realize that somebody may have put their life at risk to get that coconut for you. Because, I mean, they have to, this is dangerous. You get up there, if you fall there, you're going to get injured or probably die, you know. And this was where they were producing things that they were growing, and these people had been largely without jobs. before this. They were jobless, but now, after only about 3 months from when they received their basic training of 2 weeks basic training, they were now producing on a professional level. Now, they had gotten some help from the government. The government had actually installed, for this particular small farm of 2 acres, they had installed a water system with tanks, underground piping, and they could have drip irrigation for part of the farm. So they were being able to produce very, very well and could produce all year long because they were also near a river where they could irrigate, bringing water from the river. So it was very exciting. You know, these people do not have to stay poor. With a little encouragement, with a little help, with a little guidance, they can produce because they're not afraid to work. You know, here sometimes people don't like to work too much, but there they're not afraid to work, and especially the women. The women will work day and night. It's unbelievable how hard, you know how hard the women work. Can you say amen? These ladies know how to work in Africa, and they sometimes put us to shame in this country, the level of commitment and the level of willingness to do hard work. These were tomatoes that were being grown there, or tomatoes, as they say over there, and the onions. So it's very exciting. Here, another person that we met with, he was hatching little chicks. So he'd get the eggs and put it in the incubator here. He had more than one incubator, and he was using that also as a source of income. He would then sell the little chicks. Here's a water supply that was being used to irrigate another farm of 27 acres, and they were doing amazing things there. Here you can see the different people involved. The one man there in the blue, he's a physician. And then they had also an electrical engineer, but most of the people that were involved in this were just people that had one time, back in September, the September before I was there in January, were jobless. And the young man here, right here in the hat, he had been a big talker, not producing, but now he was like a supervisor. He knew where he was going, and he was committed. I mean, it was a big change that's happened in just a few months with a little bit of encouragement and training. Look at the beautiful maize there in the background, or corn as we call it here. So this was another place in Dar es Salaam where I met this young man that was working a field growing greens, and he told us the remarkable thing that he would invest 40,000 shillings, or about $20, for 15,000 for the water. He had to water them twice a day. 15,000 to rent the plot, and then 10,000 to get the seed. And then a little bit extra he would have to buy the manure, the chicken manure. But for investment of about 50,000, he could then sell those each month because they would be ready for harvest in 1 month, 30 days. He could sell those for 300,000, make a profit of 50,000 shillings. That would be over about $220 in a month consistently. Amazing. Oh, we're going backwards. Okay, and there were 10 people that were working together there in different plots, and so then they would stagger their growing season. Each one would grow plant their things about 3 days apart. That way they would always have fresh greens available for the community in that area. This is Dar es Salaam, the waterfront there, as we go over then to Zanzibar, beautiful island. On Zanzibar, we were able to make contact with a Muslim center, and these people just treated us so kindly. We were able to help them during the time I was in Africa. I visited actually 6 times in Zanzibar this year. That we were able to help them get a sewing machine, and then later another friend of mine helped them to get some computers, to teach computers. And some of these people were so excited, they thought they would never be able to learn a computer. Now they were learning. They were so excited over something that we might take for granted. They had some rooms. This was a big house that they rented, and so they had rooms for volunteers. And the first time I went, I stayed in a hotel, small hotel. But you know, that gets expensive if you don't have a lot of money. I'm retired. I don't have a lot of money to spend on hotels. And so I was able to ask them, would I be able to stay in one of these rooms? And so they accommodated me. And I had food and a place to stay. And they had actually volunteers come in from Belgium, France, Egypt, different countries, Muslim people. And the ones from France were not Muslim, but from Egypt were Muslim, to come over and volunteer, teaching things like French, teaching different things, you know, that English, French, different topics, that they would be able to help them teach young people and women and children something that would help improve their lot. There's the group outside. And we have built a tremendous relationship with these people. They have another center on another island called Pemba. And the end of next month, we hope to have a big health outreach there in Pemba, there on another island. It's a little more remote island. There's not so many tourists and more natural than the main island here. You'll notice that there are many doors in the town of Stonetown and in Zanzibar. They carve these doors by hand, the designs, and make beautiful doors, many different designs. You could write a book. You could publish a book on all the different designs of the doors there in Zanzibar. In fact, I saw a small book on that. Notice the narrow streets. It's for two reasons. One of the things is when there would be an invading army, if there was an invading army, they couldn't navigate too well on a narrow street. Another thing is that just like Cuba and other places, if you have a narrow street, it stays cooler because there's more shade that way, because there's not too much time when the sun is beating down on the walls or on the sidewalk. So it makes it cooler by having narrow streets. Another one of the beautiful doors. Some of them are just elegant. And we had a chance also to make some contact with sports groups. They have a lot of sports groups, and they have a lot of exercise groups, fitness groups, 44 fitness groups on the island there. And so we want to target those in the future with our health message, being able to help them to learn more than just about exercise, but look at the total aspect of health: nutrition, exercise, fresh air, water, sunshine. You know those 8 natural doctors that we teach about. This was a carpentry shop, no walls, you just hope people didn't come and steal your things. But they were able to produce very nice things. It's amazing what they can produce with little tools and with very simple setting like this. They can produce very nice quality things. That's a set of doors that's being produced there in that outdoor carpentry shop. I had a chance to visit a farm that was a relative, actually, of a Muslim man that I met. He took me to meet this man, and he took me around on his farm. And here's how they grow the coconuts. Reproduce the coconuts. They'll put the coconut in the ground like that. You see, they're down in the ground there, these coconuts. And then they'll sprout, like here. And then they'll transplant them then to different places. So they start off like this, you see, and then they begin to sprout. And then they'll transplant them. Here's a pineapple plant. It takes about 3 years for pineapple, I'm going to understand, from when you plant them to when you harvest them. And does anybody know what that is? That's vanilla. Vanilla. That's you have artificial vanilla flavor you buy a lot of times, but the real vanilla flavor is the plant is very expensive, like $100 for a kilo of real vanilla. So it's very expensive, from what I understand. This was an interesting thing. There was one Adventist church where there were handicapped, disabled people and deaf people that were meeting together, helping one another, doing projects together, but also trying to reach out to others who had similar disabilities. And the president of this group was a blind man. He was an Adventist blind man. He was the president. And then some of the other people involved. And this man on the left, he was kind of like the one working with the deaf people. But you know what? He spent most of the money that he received from the conference on helping people to be able to come to different activities. He was very unselfish, very caring for the people that he was ministering to. This is now on the beach at Bagamoyo, which is on the Indian Ocean, on the eastern part of Africa, in the country of Tanzania. And just to the left here is a college where they teach crafts, they teach media, they teach music, even teach guitar, they teach piano, they teach different things in this craft and media and music college. And so we made friends there. I'm hoping that in the future we may be able to use some of their facility for training of young people. But it's a beautiful, you can just walk right from the campus to the beach. Isn't that nice to wouldn't that be nice to have it might be tempting though for the young people to spend more time on the beach than learning anything. But anyway, this is a very nice place. Another thing that was very interesting, I visited a man named John Shagama. I had met him back in 2015 when I was over there for the mission extravaganza that they had in Tanzania, Dar es Salaam area. And this man is a very interesting man. He's a very successful businessman, but he is also a diplomat. He is the ambassador for a foreign country to his country. He is the ambassador for the Czech Republic to Tanzania. And so he is an ambassador, even though he is a Tanzanian, for another country. I never saw that before. But he has a big dream for an area. He has 100 acres and another 1,000 acres just nearby where he wants to develop into a school that will be a free university and a free trade school. Now, the reason why he says free is this. When he was young, he was in primary school, or elementary school, we call it here. He was fired from school because his parents couldn't pay 20 shillings. He had to leave school. His parents couldn't come up with 20 shillings. That's not very much money, but to them, they didn't have it, so they couldn't pay, so he had to leave school. So he has a real passion that young people never have to go without education if there's anything he can do to help. So he has developed this property. He's developing this property, this 100 acres, and he's going to be having a trade school. This is going to be like administration place of the trade school. And then he has a very insightful idea. What he's going to do is he's going to build 24 apartments, 12 duplexes, and he's going to invite, because he travels worldwide, he's going to be inviting retired people from around the world to come and teach at that school. They will teach for 4 months, be off for 2 months. Teach for 4 months, be off for 2 months. He'll provide them lodging, transportation, take them where they need to go. They'll be able to go through things on the weekends, and they'll be able to have, a good, safe environment and be able to make a difference. And they won't have to charge these young people. The only things the young people have to work, of course, to make it happen, on the 1,000-acre farm, they can be working to make, grow things that will help to make it possible for this to happen. I believe this is much like the biblical model. We have two basic models in Scripture of education. It's not big, fancy universities where you end up with a $200,000 bill at the end. No, it is the school of the prophets. What was that? They learned a trade. They learned activity. They learned how to work. It was the harmonious development of the head, the hand, and the heart. Now it's all about the head. That's all we know how to do. We just train this. They don't know how to work when they get out. They don't know how to to live. They're not practical anymore. Most people that come out of school today, they're not practical people because we never trained them right. But also the spiritual component is there. The true education is the harmonious development of the head, the hand, and the heart. And this can happen. It does not need to be expensive universities. It can't be. If you have expensive things, you're going to have to pay for it somehow. It has to be something that is affordable, free, but everyone must work. It must be accessible. It must be near people. They don't have to travel to another country to access it. It must be self-sustainable in 3 years or less, and then it must be reproducible anywhere in the world. That's what I believe we should be doing if we're going to see God's work finished. You cannot put your eggs in a few baskets and expect to finish God's work. You have to have something that can be reproduced everywhere, and it can be done now. It does not have to be somewhere in the future. That's our dream, and I believe it can happen. He has the same dream. When I met him back in 2015, it's the same idea as I had. We have to do this if we're going to see young people rightly trained to complete God's work. Now, it's interesting. He has here, put, what's the matter here? It's not working. What's the matter? Turn it off? Turn it on again? Hey, it's not working. Okay. See this lake here? He's made two lakes. One is an overflow lake, and this lake here is the main lake. It is deeper than the port in Dar es Salaam where the ships come in. It is deeper than the port of Dar es Salaam. And so he has water here that can be used for irrigation. It can be used for whatever needs. And he has a dairy farm up on the hill. So he's already developing something that can be very, very significant in helping young people to get an education. We also had a chance to go to Oyster Point area where they were doing a health expo. There was a church there called Masaki Church. It's an English-speaking church. That's a branch off from another church there, English-speaking church. And a lot of young people, a lot of youth are involved in this church. And they were doing a health expo there. They had different booths that were set up and demonstrating different things about healthful living. They had different screenings and people talking about the importance of taking care of your teeth and different things like that. Not all of them were Seventh-day Adventists. Some were coming from the community. Some were coming from different organizations to be involved. This man here was Indian man, probably Hindu man, and he was from a place where they do dental work and other types of medical work. Here you can see they're checking their blood pressure. But it was very well received. It had a lot of people come through there, and people seemed to be excited about it. And there's the group that was involved. I had a chance also to go over to a place several hours from Dar es Salaam called Morogoro, where there was a girls' school. Miriam, it was an all a girls' school, no boys going to that school. And so I went over there to share with the young people, and they put me up. They had a little place there where they could put guests up. They put me up there, so I got acquainted with these young people. And very promising young people. It's very exciting to see these young people that want to do something. Now, unfortunately, most of the time in Africa, when you go to schools, the big push is what? To pass the government exams. That's the big push of almost all schools in Africa, is to pass certain exams so that you can be able to move on to a higher level. If you don't pass those exams, you're not going to be able to go on to college. And so it's very important for these young people, but I don't think education should be all about exams. It should be much more than that. We need to provide education that is a balanced education, not just worried about passing exams. Because you can memorize things, you can learn things like that, but doesn't mean you've really learned it, be able to share it with others or to internalize it yourself. You've learned it to regurgitate it, you see. And that also is what's happening in this country a lot. A lot of our education here is about passing exams, moving on to a higher level, but you may not be very practical in the things that you're learning. You may not be internalizing those things to really make a difference in your life. So this was one morning there as the sun was coming up. I had a chance to climb, that was the evening. Now this was, had a chance to climb some beautiful mountains. There's a nice mountain range just nearby at Morogoro, and I want to show you some of the beautiful flowers on that mountain as I climbed. Such beautiful flowers, many different types. Looking down as we came up to a higher level there. Isn't that beautiful? It almost looks like one of those firecrackers, that goes off and everything goes in different directions. It almost looks like a firecracker. And this is straw flowers, very beautiful. There's the mountain range. So this is just up from Morogoro. In the foreground here is Morogoro. Then I went south. Now this was quite a trip. I went from Dar es Salaam down to Lilongwe, Malawi. Dar es Salaam, Tanzania to Lilongwe, Malawi, on a bus. I don't recommend it. And we left in the morning. We got to the border to Malawi. And we had to wait for 12 hours while they were going through customs. You see, the women would go into Tanzania, and they were entrepreneur women, the business women. They would go and buy things, and then they bring them through. Then they all have to clear customs. I mean, this takes all day. They're sitting 12 hours waiting for the bus to go on. And then this is what happened. We go into Malawi, and I kid you not, within about the first 70 kilometers, within about the first 50 miles, we were stopped 14, this was nighttime now, okay, late at night, 14 or 15 times, and every time they had to pay a bribe. Every time. They just knew when they were stopped, they would just go with the bribe. They had to pay the bribe. It was expected. It was anticipated. They were prepared to pay that. I don't know how they made much money because they paid so many bribes in that short time. But then eventually we got down to Lilongwe, the capital of Malawi. Now Malawi was the country where my parents went when I was a boy, but it was called Nyasaland back in 1958. We were there for 4 years, from 1958 to 62, and then in 64, it got its independence from the British and became the country of Malawi. Now, in Malawi there, we were going to be working at a refugee camp of 40,000 people from 5 countries. Most of them, the majority the biggest number are from the country of DRC, Democratic Republic of the Congo. But there are also refugees there from Rwanda, Burundi, Ethiopia, and Somalia. But the biggest number were from Democratic Republic of the Congo. And this young man here, standing behind me, Lucky Azikin, he's from the country of Nigeria. I met him here in the U.S. The previous time when he was here for a program called the Washington Mandela Fellowship. I don't know if you've heard about that, something that President Obama started some years ago. Very wonderful program where they bring young people in from different countries of Africa and they send them to they divide them up to 24 universities around the country. They have 6 weeks in those universities and then they come together in Washington here in July to a summit. And so I'd had some contact. I'm always looking for ways of connecting with people. And if you want to connect with wonderful, wonderful young people, try to sneak in on some of those things because it's amazing. I wasn't a delegate, but I have to find ways to get in, so that I can be able to fellowship and get to know these people. But Lucky here, the wonderful young man, he's a Christian man. He's an optometrist in the country of Nigeria. Now, Nigeria is a huge country, a big population. He and his fiancée, I think maybe by now they're married, but he and his fiancée were both optometrists. But he came to help with this eye clinic, free eye clinic in the refugee camp. And he had all the machinery, good machinery, that's all portable. He did not need to be in an office or plugged into power. It was all portable, even to check the pressure on the eye and all those things. It was all portable. So he was able to come, and we were able to service 546 people with eyeglasses. And that was the ones reading eyeglasses. And then there were also a few that were for prescription glasses. But it was very exciting to see what God was doing there. And Lucky has a big dream for the country of Nigeria. Now, this is amazing to me, that God puts a dream like this into a person's mind. But his dream is this, that in the country of Nigeria alone, he anticipates, his vision is to establish 1,000 locations where people can come for free eye care. Can you imagine that? One man with a vision. 1,000 locations across Nigeria where people can receive free eye care. Now, they won't be fancy buildings. This will be more like home setting types of things, simple home setting types of things where people come and get the free eye care. But shouldn't we have a bigger vision? Don't you think God wants us as a people to have a bigger vision? A vision of a finished work. Not be happy with having a few institutions here and there, but let's find a way that we can reach out in community after community with places like centers of influence. They don't have to have a big institution, but places where we can demonstrate this method that Jesus used in communities all around the world. I believe that's a model that we should be following in these last days. So this was the Hand and Hope Malawi. Here's some of the eyeglasses that were put out. I had been able to send 1,250 pairs over by another container in a previous time, and so we were able to use some of those in this free eye clinic. Here he has also a place where we give the free medication as needed. Someone checking the eyes, and now he's looking at the eyes, inspecting the eyes. And, these people were so grateful for that. In fact, other places that we have been doing health outreach, they're wanting eye. If you know of any people that can help us with eyes and with helping people with their eyes and vision, it's a big need in Africa. Also dental. Dental and eye care is really needed. While I was there, I had a chance on a Sabbath to go over to where they're having a camp meeting. Seventh Day Adventist camp meeting, not far away in a town nearby. Look at all these little young people. I mean, these are future workers for God's work if we can train them. We train, equip, mobilize, and empower the youth of Africa. We can see great things happening. In fact, this is what I believe. It's a growing conviction on my heart, and I believe it's true. Now, you can believe most anything, right? But I think I have evidence. I believe, and this comes from a lifetime of connection, almost a lifetime. I was 61 years with Africa. I've had connection since I went as a boy. But I believe that God has his eye on Africa in a special way to help complete his work. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be done by Africa alone, but I think there's something about Africa where we have so many young people, if we can get them rightly trained, that they can impact many places around the world to help finish God's work. Now, each one of us have a part in that, not just Africa. We don't leave it to somebody else. But I believe God has a special plan for Africa. What was once considered a dark continent, it may become the center of outreach for Christian work. It very well could be. I believe he has his eye on Africa in a special way. So pray for Africa. Pray for the youth of Africa, the leadership of our work there. Then I had a chance to go to one of the most remote missions that we have in the country of Malawi, probably the most remote. There's another one called Matandani, but it's gotten more attention recently. But then I had a chance to go to this very remote one. The education director for the union wanted me to go because he knew that maybe I could be of some help there in looking at the needs and letting people know about the needs. So as we look at it here, you'll be able to see there's big needs in this small mission that is an very old mission in a remote area there in Malawi. We're going along this little road here, dirt road. We're off a hard surface now. In the distance, you see a large community. But then it becomes more like Africa used to be. Oh, I loved it. This is what Africa used to be. You know, it's been contaminated by the West, I'm sorry to say. I think we've done very little good to help Africa. We've just made them dissatisfied with what they've already had. They don't need to be dissatisfied. They had something good when they had good relationships. They had the chief taking care of them. Now they have uncaring leaders that take advantage of them. I think the old was even better than most of what we find in Africa today. I don't think we did them any good with colonialism. But we can't change that. But we can show something better. As Christians, we can demonstrate something better, and that is the Christian model, Christ's model of how we should relate to and treat one another. And we have opportunity to do that as Christians. You know, God's calling us to demonstrate something better. You can't overcome evil, but you can show something better by showing something good. So we were traveling along, and we were told that there was a bridge that was out, but we went ahead and looked. We wanted to go see what it was like because they had big flooding in that area back in March. And so now we get down to the bridge area, and you can see how the water had damaged that. Now look on this side. Here it looks fine, right? But somehow, the way that the water went, it destroyed it on the far side. The water was coming down this way, and it destroyed it on the bottom side. I don't know why it did that, but somehow it did. And so you weren't able to take a vehicle across there. We went back then around. We went actually into the country of Mozambique and then back into Malawi again because it's right near the border of Mozambique, another country. It's a beautiful country back there. This is in a government forest area. And finally we got to the mission, and here's the church. It's in need of a lot of work, but that's the church of this old mission, very old mission. This is in the girls' dormitory, one of the girls' dormitory rooms, very humble. And here the girls are there where they're eating their food. And, you know, these people deserve better than that. They deserve better than that. But, you know, this is what they have, and we need to find ways that they can improve their lot and have them have a more satisfactory place to spend their time as they're learning. These are boarding students. Now, they have a big property there, so it has a lot of potential. But you know, just because it has potential doesn't mean it's necessarily being used. But if we can help them to see the potential and to begin to take advantage of this area and do more farming and other things, planting crops, planting groves of mangoes or other things like that that can produce income, can help the school to be able to have more to work with. There's some of the classrooms there, young people. Now, this was another mission that I visited in Malawi at a later time called Malamulo. You probably heard of Malamulo before. This is another big Adventist mission. In fact, my younger brother was born there when we lived in Malawi. We went to Malamulo to the hospital. Dr. Jack Harvey was the doctor who delivered him. And we were at this particular mission back when he was born in 1960, July 1960. This is in the church. They were getting ready for a graduation program. So there was a lot of the students there. And some of the facilities there at the Malamulo. Malamulo has a nursing school, it has a hospital, it has a secondary school, and it's a large mission. It has quite a large property too. And I met the administrator of the hospital. He's from the States here, and ate lunch with them in their home. Then, because of the big flooding they'd had in March, there was a lot of people that were displaced. Thousands and thousands of people were displaced because the Shiri River that goes down the lower part of Malawi had flooded badly, and much of the area had been devastated because of the flooding. So here are some people that are waiting just near the foot of Mount Mulanje. You'll see it later. And they were waiting for the ADRA people who had come to help to give them supplies, relief supplies. There's Mount Mulanje. You'll see it in a later picture. It's a beautiful mountain, but now it's covered with a blanket of clouds. I went with ADRA down there from Blantyre, the city of Blantyre. We went to take these supplies to the people. They had boxes that contained cooking utensils. They had boxes that contained personal items. They had a bag that had tools that they could use. And they had tarps, a large tarp. Each family would get a large tarp. So these were some emergency supplies that were given to them. And they waited so patiently for hours and hours because, you know, they were dependent on these things. But here you see the bags where they had the tools inside. They've been given their other things. I helped in giving out the tarps. But they're so appreciative. Then you have to get them taken home somehow. So you need to either get a motorcycle or you take them by bicycle or carry them home. There's Mount Mulanje now. You see when they Clouds go up. A beautiful mountain. It's the highest mountain in that part of Africa, over 9,000 feet. This was another place in Blantyre area. I was looking for opportunities to do some simple training with young people. My passion is youth and young adults. And these young people are so eager to learn. I do some very simple things that I do in training, initial training, but we want to provide more long-term training for the young people. We want to help them to learn marketable skills, some way that they can support themselves. It may be tailoring, might be bicycle repair, small engine repair. You know, there's all kinds of things you can do. Even making soap. You can support yourself that way. Many things that we can teach them. So we want to teach them marketable skills. We want to teach them how to do effective volunteer work for their community and for God or for their church. Those are basic things. And then we see training as being a lifetime experience, not an event, not something that you do for 3 months and then you stop learning. But I believe training should be for a lifetime, that we should be always improving our skills, learning new things, and learning how we might do better what we're doing, so that we're developing those skills, you know, taking advantage of the opportunities God gives us. Now, this was the information sheet in the one place that we went, one of the humble relief camps that they had. And over 2,000 people were in this camp, okay? And I went with this Church of the Nazarene pastor that I had met back in 2013 when I was there in Malawi. A wonderful, godly man. At that time, in 2013, he was over 35 churches. And I'm not sure how many he has now, but he's a very humble man. He drives this old motorcycle. He doesn't even have a car to oversee 35 churches. And you know, those Nazarene people were wonderful. They treated me better than Adventists. They treated me better than Adventists did. I'm serious. Some of these people are really godly people. And I believe, you know, God has his eye on them. If we were just ready as a church to receive them, God could bring many into our church. The problem is mostly us. It's because, you know, we're bickering, we're carrying on about things that aren't important. God knows he can't trust people in our care. If we came in, they'd get discouraged and leave. He can't trust us. That's why he doesn't bring them in, I believe. He wants to, because he's given us this wonderful message, but we're not prepared. We're not ready to receive them. You know, sometimes we have our little exclusive clubs in churches. And if you're not in the club, you know, forget it. You're not going to be accepted. I even found this as a pastor. Sometimes conference leadership, you know, they have their exclusive clubs. You know, if you don't do certain things, you're not a part of the club. And so we got to get away from that foolishness. We need to be about loving people for God's kingdom. Don't focus on me. Focus on him, because there's only one legitimate head of the church, not many. Only one, and that's Jesus. But this man is a sacrificial man. I'm a very humble man, but he took me to this place where we were going to visit the people that were in the camp. And they had a distribution there, 2019 emergency food response of Chikwawa district. And this was implemented by Eagles Relief and Development Program. And you can see some of the Christian Aid and another aid there program. I wish we were doing more. We did very little in this huge flooding. This is what I say. We need to be ready to respond when the opportunity is there. When I visited 6 of the camps out of the 18 camps. And you know what? Here you find thousands and thousands of people that we could be ministering to while they're sitting there waiting to be allowed to go back and rebuild their lives. Thousands of people, but we did almost nothing. We don't do any better here. Don't shake your heads, okay? We don't do any better here. We're usually too little, too late. That's our tradition. Too little, too late. But we should be better prepared, folks. When I saw the potential here, we could have been reaching thousands of people while they're already there. We just need to go minister. We don't have to bring them together. They're there. God's brought them there together, even through an emergency, but we don't catch the opportunity. We don't ride the wave of opportunity, but we need to do better. We can learn from our past, okay, but we should not repeat it. We should do better. But there were other organizations that were doing a great work there. They had the laundry soap to wash your clothes with. They had hand soap. They had the soya pieces and then the fufu flour for making the thick cornmeal called ugali. And down there they call it nshima, which is similar to ugali in Kenya and Tanzania. But they were doing a great work. And then there was this lady, that was also involved. Here's some of the young people. This lady was involved, and she was involved with feminine kits for young ladies and women. For when they are menstruating, they are washable kits. They can be, the pads can be washed and reused again, and can last for like 2.5, 3 years if they're properly taken care of. And so she has a ministry, and she was taking these to delivering them to like 2,000 people in different camps. So amazing opportunity for ministry. And wherever you go, you could find these opportunities. Now, on the way back, we got a flat tire on a motorcycle. What do? You're out in the middle of nowhere. You can't call AAA. There's no AAA there. So here I would call AAA. No AAA. So he had to send someone to go and find someone that could repair bicycle tires. Now, this was a motorcycle tire. But he did incredible things. The man, and by the way, while we were waiting there, I've come to see that, sometimes that events that happen, we wonder why. But God works something out. We were able then to meet some young people. These were three little Adventist young people that came to watch us, you see. They went to an Adventist church somewhere nearby, and we had many other young people that gathered that night. And this is now, he's fixing this tire. He did not take it off the vehicle. He did not take it off. He repaired it on the motorcycle. He knew how to do this. And so watch what he's doing here now. He takes it out. He blows it up to see where the hole is. He fixes it, he puts it back in, reinstalls it, repumps it up, and never takes it off the motorcycle. And all the while, the young people are watching. So we have a little time to minister as we're there. When I go back there, I have some young people to minister to. Okay, when I go back, I'll go minister to those young people. So there's the sun is setting. Went another time with a group that does Christian work with young people, with children. This is a wonderful young lady that has a real passion for children. And so she would do things with the young people. And you'll notice there, see how they had the temporary shelters that they made out of grass. And families were able to live in those shelters. This was the only person that I saw cooking food in the camp. Only one person I saw. But then I found out maybe why. We had brought 9 bags. They had brought, the group that I'd come with had brought 9 bags of fufu flour to make the thick porridge. We took them into the storage tent, and those were the only 9 bags in there except that little bag in the corner. For hundreds of people. So it was a big need, and they were most graceful even for that little amount of food. We had a chance to go to a game park, the elephants there. At noontime, we ate up in this blind where we could look down on a place where the animals would come to drink water, and wouldn't you know, but 2 lions came across. There you can see the one went down there to get a drink. It had a collar on, a radio collar, so they could be tracked. And then another one came along. I think we were the only ones that saw lions around there that day. But they came right there when we were just about ready to leave. Then we're driving along the trees on the road. Where did they come from? Well, the elephants, if they want something on top of the tree and they can't reach it, they'll push the tree over. They have that ability. So an elephant had pushed the tree over on the road. So what do? Well, you have to find a way around. So we went over through the bush and came back and past the tree. Here's the little warthogs. When you see them out in the wild, it's so funny because when they're running through grass, all you'll see is the little tails up there of the babies running behind the mothers. The mother's antenna will be up, and all the little babies' antennas are up. You may only see tails running through the grass, but you see the warthogs then. They're very ugly animals. And this guy looks like he sat on a wet toilet seat, right? Just freshly painted toilet seat. But it's a water buck. It's the water buck. They're beautiful animals. That's the male. Had a chance to visit Puerto Rico, a small mission there near Lilongwe, where a friend of mine and his wife have put a lot of effort into helping them, even helping them now also at that time to be building some classrooms for chemistry lab. Nice classrooms, very representative. Some of the ladies that we saw there. And then as I left Blantyre, I was in the place where we get the tickets for we get to catch the bus. And I met some people from Sweden. I told them then as we traveled, about this refugee camp that I had visited, where we had done the eye clinic. They wanted to visit. So I took them out there to that area. We went out to visit. And wouldn't you know, here are the people from Sweden on the left there. But wouldn't you know, this young man here from DRC speaks 9 languages, and one of them is fluent Swedish. How did he learn it? on the phone talking to a friend from Sweden. He talked like he was a Swedish person. Had the accent, amazing. I don't know how some people can do this. It's a gift. 9 languages he can speak. And you know, a person like that, if they're given opportunity, they could be a benefit. Speaking 9 languages, you know, there's a lot of people that would like to have someone like that working for them, but sometimes they're restricted because of visas and all this kind of thing. They're stuck there and limited, even though they have great talent. So it's a concern. I had a chance to visit the old mission where we used to live when I was a child, the Loazi mission. And I had a little competition there with the conference president and the conference treasurer and the conference secretary took me there. We had a little race. And so off we are running. You can see us running here. We go down, we turn around and come back again. And the president's bringing up the rear. So we gave him a little bit of a hard time. No, actually, we didn't give him too hard a time. And I met this man who was a boy when I was a boy. You know, they remember me better than I can remember them because I was the only white boy in the community, so they can remember me, but I can't remember all of them. But you know, Sostin Mfune, who is Children's Minister Associate Director in General Conference, his father was head teacher on this mission. My father was mission director when we were boys. And now he's ready to retire at General Conference. You know, there's that young man who is not young anymore, he's like my age. Up on the hills where we used to live, I could tell you a whole raft of stories about that sometime in the future. Now we're traveling, going back up to Tanzania, some of the sites along the way, and traveling now on a wonderful boat. This is a very fast ferry that goes over to Zanzibar again. We wanted to go over there, had some young people that I was with. The lady in the middle there, 70-year-old lady, she was with her daughter here in Ghana and Tanzania for 3 months. And then the lady on the left here, she's a relative of the pastor, Jackson Mdingi. This young lady here was a person who served in the hotel where I used to eat breakfast a lot. And this lady here was the daughter of people that I've stayed with in Dar es Salaam. So they have these little boats that take you out on a little voyage out to what they call Prison Island. They used to have a prison out on this island. This Zanzibar used to be a place where they would sell slaves. They bring the slaves in here and sell them to different countries. And so these people were with me, and so they had one boat that said, you know, ladies were free, but not 5 ladies for one paying person. It wasn't meant for 5 ladies. So, this is one of the beautiful beaches. Paji Beach is the name of it, on the eastern side of Zanzibar. Beautiful beach, and they do a lot of kite sailing. You know, where they have these kites that go along the water on the beach. And if you'll notice how the light water is going way out there, that's the reef going way out. And then way out there, you see the dark water there. That's where it gets deeper. And so that's a very nice place when they're kite sailing. If they get down into the water, it's just very deep, very shallow during the time when tide is out. And in town there, I met this man that was making these beautiful chests, decorative chests. I got a small one for my granddaughter. There's the lady again. And we visited this church. This church was built by an Englishman on the site of where they used to have the slave market there in the country of Zanzibar. And he spent his life savings on building this church. In the church is a cross made from wood, from the tree under which David Livingstone's heart was buried after he died. Now, David Livingstone was a great African explorer, a great explorer of Africa. He was a Scottish doctor that went over to Africa, that had a great passion to take the gospel to Africa. In fact, he said this. He says, "Give me Africa or I die." And he did die on his knees near Ujiji in the country of Tanzania. But when his body was prepared to take to the coast, they cut out his organs and his heart, and they buried his heart under a tree. And this cross was made from wood from that tree under which his heart was buried. It's a beautiful, beautiful church, Anglican church. Then I traveled then on up to the north. But this is what they used to do with the slaves. They would chain them together. They would keep them in places underneath the ground, in rooms underneath the ground. They treated them just like animals, worse than animals. The inhumanity of man to man has been incredible in terms of the way they treated slavery back in slavery time. This is inside the church. And there's the man that was the one who built that church. And the altar in the church was on the place above where they used to auction people off. Very symbolic. Again, one of these narrow streets. This is a young lady, Yumna, that I met. She was a nursing student, and became friends with her and still have contact with her. She's just a wonderful young lady. And she's a Muslim, pure Muslim. But I believe God has his eye on this lady. I hope one day that she'll become a follower of Jesus. She's a precious person. We did a health expo in the community of Kibele. It was a small village near Zanzibar University, near where we were staying. And on Wednesday before Sabbath, when we were going to do the health outreach, we didn't even have the basic things all taken care of. But we went to visit the district commissioner, which is like the governor for that area. And she was so excited about what we were doing. And she lent her support. She provided the place, the school. She provided tents. She provided DJs. She provided sound system. She provided chairs. And she provided whatever she could. And after it was all over, she was actually the guest of honor. When it was all over, she wants this repeated in other communities. So health message, I tell you folks, will open doors like nothing else will. Nothing else. This is at the port there, back to down to a country of mainland of Tanzania. It was on one of these buses on my birthday, June 19, 2019, that someone stole my phone. It was the worst birthday of my life, because they stole a part of me when they stole my phone. I had so much information, but if I ever get my hands on that man, I will not be in blessing, I'm afraid. But here was the person we saw sitting by the road, by the path. Now, this is handicapped people. But you know, these people try to do something to take care of their families. And so he had this weighing machine. You could come and you could pay, and you could pay a little money and weigh yourself on the scales, and that's the way he supported his family. Very simply, very humbly. But he was such a nice man, such a cheerful man. When it got real hot or it was raining, he could be able to use his umbrella. Very ingenious. Now, this is the training. Now, this is this year's training at the site of where they're training young people to do things like marketable skills and those kinds of things. Pastor Jeffrey Mbwana, Vice President of the General Conference, is here teaching them, and they give them basic instruction, and then they allow them to go out and implement this in their communities. And it's amazing what can happen with a 2-week instruction. The first week, they teach them about thinking on a new level, thinking outside the box, helping them to see new possibilities. And then they give them opportunity to look at different job opportunities. Then they group themselves up and go off and put these things into practice. In 2 weeks, changes can be made in people's life. It's amazing what can happen with something simple. Some of the wonderful young people, there's Pastor Mbwana. If you want to meet a godly man, invite this man to your church. I know of no leader in our church that I respect more highly than Pastor Jeffrey Mbwana. He's from the country of Tanzania. He has been a teacher. He has been a conference president. He's been a pastor. He's been a division president. And now he's the vice president of General Conference. Last General Conference, I was hoping he would be the new General Conference president, but it didn't happen. But he's getting ready to retire, and when he does, I hope that we can get him to help us full-time as a retiree, full-time volunteer in helping to train the youth of Africa, because this man is just amazing, amazing, amazing. You must invite him to be here. Some of the people that came the previous year, a year ago, September, they're now able to come and show what they've done. Here's some of the produce, that was being produced by one of the groups. One producing soap, making soap. They also taught them about how to make petroleum jelly. They can do these things, and then they can market that and make a living doing those things. Then we had a chance to do, at the Kano Seventh-day Adventist Church in Tonga, we had a chance to do another health expo. And here, this young man is a wonderful young man. I hope someday he'll come over for General Conference next year. And his name is Shervin. He's from Iran. He's an Iranian. That's his passport. But he became an Adventist. He was a Muslim, but he became an Adventist in Malaysia. And now he's in Tanzania. And he's a wonderful young man. God has mysterious ways to. This man here is a doctor from Dar es Salaam that was helping us in the health outreach, teaching him about the importance of exercise. Here I'm teaching. And these beautiful banners in the back were donated to us by a lady from Kibidula. She helped design these, and we were given 8 of these in Swahili on the 8 natural doctors and 8 in English. So we have good materials if I had to buy them, it would be very expensive. But God was good in making those provisions for us. Back on Zanzibar Island again, I just kept going back to Zanzibar. Yes, 99% pure Muslim, but God has his eye on Zanzibar. I believe that the field is white, ready for harvest in Zanzibar. Everywhere I go in Zanzibar, I find wonderful people. But for some reason, even though there's over 100 churches in the city of Dar es Salaam, only 2 hours away, very little has been done for that island. For some reason, we seem to be fearful of the Muslims, but you don't have to fear them. There are some radical ones, just like the radical, any group, there's some radical ones. But most of them are good people. But they're very diligent. Who do you know in the Adventist church that prays 5 times a day, no matter what? Do you know anybody? You don't exist hardly. But when it's time to pray, they pray. One day I was wondering why these buses were going by. They weren't stopping. They were going to pray, buddy. The driver was going to pray. He didn't stop for you either. He was going to pray. When it's time to pray, it's time to pray. Now, why don't we have that kind of devotion? We understand God in a different way, but sometimes we become too familiar with him, and we just think, we can take him or leave him. But no, we need to have that kind of high level of devotion that the Muslims have. They have something to teach us. We can learn from them. And they are so wonderful people. They're just wonderful. I hope that when we go back over there, we're able to start developing some centers of influence where we can do education, where we can do outreach, we can do health, we can do many things to influence the communities where we work there among the Muslims. This is Hani baths. This is Persian baths. They call them Persian baths. You can look on the internet and see about that in the city of Tonetown. And one of the young ladies, I used to come here to eat breakfast. Oh, man, they had a multi-course breakfast. It was so good. And I kept going back. And I became close friends with this young lady. She's a precious young lady. I'm going to be trying to help her go to school for beauty salon school. She wants to learn to be a hair technician. And then this is one group that helped us with the health outreach. Then I had a chance to go to Ubungo, which is a place some distance away for a camp meeting. Here they're fixing the food. Look at all those big pots of food that they're fixing for the people that are coming to the camp meeting. Big job fixing all that food. And one day there was this one little boy that had a little sucker, and I asked him we asked where he got it, so he took us to get him. And so we took the group of young people down there, and he got them each a sucker. They were so happy. One of the beautiful waterfalls. And then the water from the waterfall comes down, and they have a canal that takes a lot of it down to the area where they're growing rice. Big area where they grow rice. The Japanese helped to establish this some years ago. But when rice is getting ripe, I didn't know it was so much work, but when rice is getting ripe, the birds like to come and eat it. And so these people have to get out there, and they make hundreds of these little clay balls that they sling here and they sling there at the ball, at the birds to chase them away. And when they sling them, they'll make a whistling noise. And this guy, he produces hundreds of these every day to go out there to chase the birds away. I didn't know it was so much work. So here he is. He's winding up like David with Goliath. He's sending off these things, and he lets it fly. And then, that bird will just fly to the next field. He doesn't leave permanently. He just goes, and someone else got to chase him off. So everybody's got a job, chasing birds that way. What do? You don't want to lose your thing. Then I had a chance to go up, quickly as we close here, had a chance to go up to one of the early missions of Adventism. It was established by the Germans back at the time when Germans were in that area, back at the time of the First World War, before the First World War. And here, anybody know what this is? These are beds that they have, terrace-like beds, where they grow ginger. This used to be big ginger area, and there's still a big ginger area, but it used to be, now they have competition in some other areas, but this is ginger. And this is just one of the old churches that was established by the Germans. Going across the bridge there's a site there where one of the missionaries died and was buried there. Some of the old classrooms established by the Germans, and then this is one of the old churches there, one of the big old church. On the way back down to Ubungo, then we passed this cart full of wood, and one evening this young lady came to me. She gave me a letter, and in that letter, she wrote how that she had never seen the face of her father. Never. Sometimes this happens, even in this country, but in Africa it's not uncommon. Sometimes, parents will abandon their responsibilities as parents, but she had never seen the face of her father, but she wanted to go to college. And we can help people like this. I'm helping to sponsor one young lady now in nursing and midwifery school. You can do it at a low cost for maybe $400 or $500 for a whole year. You can help them to get education. So if any of you have a burden for something like this, there are young people that, there's no way that they're going to do it. Her mother's just a poor farmer. She has, big responsibilities, taking care of the family, and she's never seen the face of her father. So we need to do something. Kilimanjaro, here we come. In June of this year, before General Conference, we're going to stand on top together with youth from across Africa. If you want to be a part, you're invited. Early June. I climbed it 3 times when I was a boy, but the last time was July 1969. So it's been, 50 years ago that I climbed it the last time. But we're going to stand on top of Kilimanjaro together. You should come in June, early June, before General Conference. Our goal, now I don't know what God's going to do with it, but we've set a goal to recruit, train, equip, mobilize, and empower 1 million young people across Africa before General Conference this year, which starts the 25th of June. I don't know what God's going to do with it, but I know it's possible. Another group in Africa there, they did not train people, but they were making connections with people, and within 1 month, they had 1 million people on their list. 1 month! Now, we're not going to just people on the list. We want to do something with those people. But they were able to recruit 1 million young people onto their list in 1 month. There are hundreds of millions. We're just talking about a drop in the bucket. We can do it with God's help. I don't know. That's my dream. That's our dream. So we'll see what God will do with it. But if you want to be involved in that, I want to be one of a million. I want to be one of a million, because each of those are going to be trained to train others. They're not going to be trained to stop and do nothing. They're trained to be trainers. Can you imagine what can happen with a domino effect year after year if we add millions after millions worldwide? We don't need to think in terms of thousands anymore. We can have millions because there are millions around the world waiting to be trained. And Ellen White says, with such an army of workers as our youth, rightly trained, might furnish, how soon the message of a crucified, risen, soon coming Savior might be carried to all the world, and Jesus would come. I believe that's the secret of a finished work. And you have wonderful young people here closing. Okay, there was a marathon that took place there in Nairobi just before I left. A family from Ethiopia. We met this guard that was at one place as I was out that day. He was an Adventist man. And I stayed with this pastor, Pastor Jacob, and his wife, and some of her friends there that day. There's a school, one of the schools and churches nearby that he pastors. And this young man here, he's going to help us. He's working on helping us to develop a website and also a database where we can keep track of those that are involved in our outreach. This is the conference officer, Central Malawi Conference. And I visited a new hospital that's been developed there in the same compound as the conference headquarters, and also the school and primary secondary school and the church. Here's inside the facility, a nice facility, and I've offered to help them marketing that. So I'm going to be at a distance, one of their marketing people, helping them to try to improve their outreach. So on our way to the airport now. Here we go, past Kibera Slum, a wonderful place I enjoyed getting acquainted with some years ago, where there's so many people, needy people. This is a place where Jesus would be hanging out if he was there. I guarantee you, so many needs. And it's a place for us to minister. Off we go. And wouldn't you know, between Nairobi and Addis Ababa, I met this couple. These are a couple from Egypt, Muslim people. But this lady here is a trainer, a professional trainer. And my contact since with her is that she's interested in helping us train the youth of Africa as well. She has a passion for youth. Her husband works with the World Food Program in Syria, very dangerous place. She is now in Beirut, Lebanon, and recently had some medical issues. But pray for Merwa in a special way, that she can help us to train the young people of Africa. And now here we are back home again. God bless you. I hope that you have been inspired to do something for God's kingdom. You know, when I die, I don't know when that will be, but I'm getting closer and closer as the days go by. But when I die, I want to have one thing happen for me. I want whatever possible to be invested in the kingdom. I'm really not interested in leaving anything behind except to care for my wife if she outlives me. She probably will. But I want it invested in the kingdom. I want it invested in people, that we can be able to spend eternity with those people. I want to invite you to do the same. Let's invest in what has eternal significance. You know, nothing of this world can we take with us. We might have a beautiful diamond ring. We might have a bank account. We might have gold stored in our basement. But we take nothing. In fact, even your body cannot contaminate heaven. It must be changed. You must be given a body like the glorified body of Christ. Nothing. And so let's prioritize, reprioritize, and focus on what has eternal significance. And that is people and relationships and character development. Those are the things that will last forever. When Jesus comes, he's going to ask us basically two questions, I believe. He's going to say, first of all, where's your family? That wife, that child, those grandchildren that I gave you, where's your family? And then he's going to say, who else did you invite? Because we're not going into the kingdom alone. We must invite others. That's why we're here. That's our purpose. That's our raison d'etre, our reason for existence as a church, to complete the mission that Jesus began. When he comes, I want to hear, well done, from his lips. Good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a few things. Now I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of thy Lord. May that be the experience of each one of us here tonight. Those young people back there, tremendous potential. I hope each one of you young people, Lord, you will hear the voice of the Lord talking to you and saying, invest your life in what makes a difference for eternity. Invest it in people. You'll never be disappointed. You'll never be sad that you did that. And you know, I've been around a long time. I've done many things. But I have found this secret. If you want true joy and true meaning in life, invest your life in a life of unselfish ministry. You cannot find it in King's Dominion. You cannot find it in Disney World. It's froth. It doesn't last. But you will find it only in a life of unselfish ministry and service. And Jesus, he gave us the example. He said, the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. If you want true meaning and purpose in life, fulfillment, a sense that you have discovered why you were born. And I believe the reason I was born, this is my conviction, the reason I was born, my destiny was to help the youth of Africa. That's what I believe. That's why I'm here. I believe that. Now, I didn't understand that until old age, but I believe that's why God put me here. Primary reason was to help reach the youth of Africa. Discover why you were here. Because each one of us are here for a purpose. We're not here by accident. Discover that purpose and then ask God to help you fulfill it. And you will be forever happy. When your time comes to lay down this burden of life, you will not be regretting your life. You'll be able to say, Lord, I was glad to do what I could, what little I could do. And we do it, why? Out of appreciation. You see, Ellen White tells us in the book Christian Service that we have already been paid for our service. Jesus paid for it on Calvary. You don't need to ask for pay for this in doing this work. This work is an act of love. So invest your life in unselfish ministry, and one day soon, let's hear well done from our Savior's lips. Will you join me as we stand and pray together? Father, we thank you for bringing us together this wonderful Sabbath day. Lord, I pray that the things that we've shared together here today might be seeds that will bear harvest, bear fruit for your kingdom. Help us to find that meaning and purpose in life that comes from investing ourselves fully in a life of unselfish ministry and service. Lord, forgive us for our selfishness. Forgive us for our lack of focus. Forgive us for our lack of vision. Fill us with your Holy Spirit. May the love of God constrain us, compel us to do something to make a difference for eternity. Place in our path this week people that we can share your love with. Help us to recognize those opportunities and to take advantage of them. And Lord, I pray for the youth of Africa. We want to see them trained, equipped, mobilized, and empowered along with the youth around the world to see your work soon finished so that Jesus may come. And in that day, Lord, may there be many in your kingdom that you've used us, each one, to make in some way a significant impact. Bless us now as we go to our homes and through the week, through this holiday season, and may we have opportunity to meet together, if not in this life, in heaven together. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. God bless you. Have a good evening. And remember that Jesus came to seek and to save that which was lost. And that's our mission as well. Thank you. Mhm. Some souvenirs from different countries. You might like to see those before I put them away. Yes.